So why aren't we using the wall foundation tool? Why are we using beams? Well, over here on the right, you can see why. When we use a wall foundation tool, we don't really get the flexibility of being able to step the bottom of a wall if we want to keep that wall continuous. Some might argue, why don't you just split your wall everywhere there's a step and change the bottom offset and then add your structural foundation? You could. But you can see that when we start playing with openings, our structural foundation wants to behave a certain way. So if I were to delete this and add another structural foundation, that's not the best default. So we're going to use footings. And we're going to use beams, I'm sorry, for our footing representation. And the next task we're going to do is we're going to tackle a step footing near that elevator. So let's go to level 1. I encourage you guys to cut a section. Let's cut a section right here, north-south, along that wall that meets the elevator pit. Let's go ahead and activate this section. Let's open it. Let's play with our graphics a little bit here. We don't need to see any of this surface patterns. So the surface pattern that I'm seeing, the shading, it's walls, right? So I can go to my visibility graphics, find my walls, and under my patterns column, let's hit override. And let's uncheck these visible checkboxes. And we'll hit OK. Okay. And just to clean up my view, I'm going to hide my levels. So I selected it and typed in HC, and same thing with my grids, because we're not annotating anything. We are strictly modeling. We are strictly trying to figure out just the construction of this thing. Now, let's open up a very, Google image of a step footing. Now, this is generic, all right, but it gives us the overall rule for what this should look like. We got our footing thickness, right? T and T. And we don't know if the height of the step equals the thickening of the step yet, right? It just depends on what two high and low we're trying to connect, right? But what we can assume with the H's is that each step is supposed to be equal, period. All right. So each step is supposed to be equal. We got the thickness. And then this first horizontal dimension of the step is just 2 times the height of the vertical dimension. Okay, so let's just start using our T dimension, which we know in our sample project. We know that dimension. So let's use that and follow some of these basic rules. So back to Revit. First things first, we have to draw lines for our destinations, the 2 foundations that we are trying to connect. And we want to connect our elevator pit. We want to step this thing up to meet this footing up here. So first things first, let's just bring back that footing. Let's draw a vertical line. So detail lines, DL, good old construction lines. Let's just draw vertical line over here and trim single, TS. Destination first, bring that guy back. Because we want a nice open space. We understand we are making changes to the model, but we are refining it now, okay? And with 2D lines, I'm gonna place a line. So select that line, CS, and I'll place a line here. And a line, well, we have our wall there, but let's just place another line up here. All right, so far, so good. And now that typical detail we saw doesn't give us a dimension away, right? How far away the beginning of the step is from an elevator pit wall. Let's just assume that it's going to be the same T dimension, the thickness. So we select our footing over here on the left, and we see in our property that it is 2 foot, okay? And let's go ahead and select this line now and do a create similar, CS, and then I'll hit pick lines, and in my offset on my options bar, I'll type in my 2 feet. And I'll just offset it like that. Now, the typical detail, if I look at it, zoom in there. So we've located this first vertical edge, right? Now we need to come over to H. Okay, we don't know what H is yet. So we already know it's two times the height of the step. So we got to figure out the height of the step. So let's go down 2 feet and see if that's enough. Let's hover over here. And now let's take a dimension and see if our 2 foot thickness is enough step to reach that elevator pit. So type in DI on your keyboard for dimension, DI. Let's hover over that line. Let's just go ahead and place these dimensions. Well, what do you know? It just happens to be enough right now. Okay, so 2 feet works. We don't need to do anything different. So we can use the actual thickness of our footing to finish off this geometry. So we have our steps here, and the typical detail said that the horizontal dimension is 2 times h, which is the height, which is 2 feet. So I'll select this line and I'll type in CS for create similar, pick, 2 times h is 4 feet. So 4, okay, and one more, 4. So we have this little chart that automatically popped up here. So now let's use our trim to trim the top, what will represent the top of our step footing. So TR, let's select these 2 lines, like that. It looks like I placed this line incorrectly here. So let me delete this line, and now let's grab both of these vertical lines and move those over 2 feet. So now if we place some dimensions, we should have 4 foot horizontals and 2 foot verticals. All right, so now let's trim these inside corners. Trim these and trim these. Okay, our lines are set as far as the top of the footing. So now we can use our trim singles. So I'm active in my section. I'm going to close my other 2 windows. I'm going to close section 4 and level 1, and I'll hit window tile, window tile. And in my 3D, I'm going to hover over to that area that we're working on. I will select the wall and the elevator pit wall below, okay, and the 1 footing that we have so far. And with those 3 selected, on my Modify tab at the top, I'll go to my View panel and I'll hit Selection Box. This is the only thing that I want to see right now. Make sense? This is it. This is all I want to see. And if you don't want thin lines or thick lines, feel free. I'm going to play with my scale here just so it's a little. All right, so I'm looking under, and I'm just having a 3D view open just as a visual check that this is coming in correctly. Now in my section view, because that's where my 2D lines are, I'm going to use my trim extend. So trim single, TS, select the destination, select your footing, 1 down. Now because these are beams, I can go about this a couple of different ways. I can copy that beam, right? And then use the surfaces, the top surface of that beam to modify my wall. Or I can modify my wall to place my beam. And for this situation, I'm going to select my beam, hit copy, CO. I'm going to hit multiple, I need more than 1. And then I'll select that top right hand endpoint And I'll place one at this and one there. Okay. You can see that the lines just popped up, just everything just joined together. All right, now how do we get the back side, that underside corner? Well, we know that we're just using a nice, clean 2-foot dimension all the way around. That works right now. But to find that back corner, there is a dimension that that typical detail does not give us. Under the alt, if I zoom in here, under this alternate 1, they are not giving us a, I think the term is a nominal dimension, and it's the minimum thickness of those corners, of those inside corners of the step. When I don't have that dimension, I use the thickness of the footing. So if you guys can see my cursor, it's this corner to that corner. So to get that, I already have 2 created. 2 inside corners exist. So I'm going to place a line, DL, and I will just place a line from here to here. Now I'm going to use my trim single to just extend that line out. Trim single, and I'll just extend it out there, and just extend it out here. Good old construction lines, right? Now on your keyboard, type in OF for offset, and on your options bar, make sure that it says 2 feet, and I'll just hover over that line and hit 2 feet there. Okay. Now, wherever the bottom step already is, you draw a line like so until it intersects. And then you draw a line from that intersection down. Okay. So to repeat that process, what I did, I connected those inside corners. I drew another line that is offset the minimum thickness of our footing, offset in. I can extend this line over a little bit. And then based on the thickness of these heights, I'm using this side. And I'm drawing a line from this corner into that intersection, this one, until it intersects. And then a nice vertical line from here down and from here down. Now I can do a trim single, TS. I select my destination first, and I select which part I want to keep. So this side, you can see my 3D is updating nicely. And same thing over here, this guy and this guy. All right, so there's our 2D section view with 1.5 million construction lines. I'm gonna go ahead and close it. And now I'm gonna take a look at my 3D view. Well, I got my step footing is good, and now I need to update my wall, okay? So now in 3D, I'm gonna click on my wall and select my 3 footings here, and now isolate element, IE. And now double click on your wall to take it into sketch mode and use your pick lines here and select the surfaces of the beams you just placed. And now you can use a good old trim command to close this loop. Okay. You're done there. Let's hit finish and escape. And you already know why we went through that task, right? We need these numbers, cubic yards or cubic footage. We need that volume to be correct. And you can see that it's not that much effort to just go into sketch mode, add a couple more lines. The beauty of that is that you can still modify the top, you see. So we can't just see it because of the section box that's cutting through it. So you can still modify the top. It's just after you modify the bottom, be sure to, you know, not try to play with the bottom base offsets. because where's the base offset? This base offset, because then you're going to start getting some weirdness happening there. All right, so we got one step footing down. Technically, we don't need to recreate this. So if I remove my section box and I restore my view, HR, our plan view, actually, let's go to plan now and window tile. All right, just so we can get a nice look as to what we're looking at here. I'm going to turn on my CAD background, so visibility graphics. Let's go ahead and show imported. We got our slab plan turned on. I have a concrete wall here, right? Just didn't add it. So now, because these are the same dimension, I could just copy my entire assembly. I could just copy it over. So to do that, let's just grab our wall. You can orbit under to make sure you don't select anything else by accident. And now hit Control and let's select these three footings. Okay, so the selection has been made. Now click once in your plan view, click once over here. You are active in your level 1. Your selection didn't change. And now we can just do a good old copy. So CO, I'll select this inside face and straight over inside face, just like that. And escape twice. Okay, so far so good. Now let's take a look at our 3D view here. All right, we just need to close that little gap there, right, that you can see on plan that we don't have. So now this is where we just continue refining. So on plan, I'm going to select that wall, create similar, pick lines. I'll pick this edge like that. All right, Revit placed it. And now I'm going to refine in 3D because 3D never lies to you. So first I'm going to trim these two together. So trim this wall and this wall. And then I'm going to extend the base of my new wall down to where that step footing is. So for that, select both walls that are in question, isolate element. Don't worry about what it's doing over here. That's just an automatic join. And now I'm going to do my align, AL, hover over that bottom of the wall. If it doesn't highlight at first, hit tab until it does. And click. And now grab the main bottom. There you go. Now let's restore our view. Okay. So now we see what Revit is doing, why that wall is notching. All right. Now we can place another one of these beams centered under this wall just to connect that together. All right. So I'm going to select this beam and this beam. I will also select the elevator pit floor and isolate element, IE. Now grab this beam and hit create similar, CS. Pick lines, now we'll pick the top of our elevator pit. And if you just want to make sure that they are joining, you can use a trim here, so TR. And then we can just trim them together. And now we're going to center this wall on the elevator pit that's there. So for that, let's go to our plan view, level 1. You can zoom in there. And I'm a fan of isolating, so footing below, wall above, isolate element. Don't worry about what that beam is doing. It's joining to two other beams, right? Now I'll hit align, AL, destination, what am I moving? All right, now let's restore the view. You can see now my hidden lines are all showing up correctly. And if we go back to our section now, you can see it right there.